The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Oh man, this game! What can I say about this game? Wow, what can I say? So, let me paint a picture for you. It's the late 90s and the video games industry is doing pretty dang good. The old playground arguments of Sega versus Nintendo are dying down because, well, Sega's dying down. I'm a wee lad, and video games are reaching the next step in their evolution. The heroes of the video game world could only move left and right for so long until they discovered the magical, the mythical, Z-axis. If you ain't a math magician, that's when you go up, down, and all around. Previous games like Star Fox, Pilot Wings, and even older games like Space Harrier had experimented with this concept, messing around with polygons and sprites, giving off the illusion of 3D environment, and for their time pulled it off quite well. But when it came to making a full 3D game set in the third dimension, especially with the oh-so-popular platform genre, we got games like Bubsy 3D. Yeah. Developers were always sort of just left scratching their heads at the concept, and then the world saw Super Mario 64. Everyone was just like, what the fuck? The game proved that three-dimensional gaming was no longer a far-fetched concept and was very, very practical. But enough about Mario. This isn't his retrospective, though that might not be a bad idea. Moving on. With this new area of 3D gaming upon us, it only makes sense that Nintendo's famous open-world franchise would be just right for all these new possibilities. Too bad the game was a piece of shit! Joking! Of course the game's not a piece of shit, it's a piece of mastery, a masterpiece. Its gameplay and concepts have influenced games even to this day. It was revolutionary, and holy shit, this has been said about 1,000,000 times. Well, it's been out for over 15 years. I suppose everything you could say about it has been said already. But, oh well, I'm just here to talk about the music. And boy, are there things to talk about. Now, one of the great things about Ocarina of Time's soundtrack is exactly what made the music of A Link to the Past so great: the evolution of the music's sound. Back in the NES era, the soundtracks were limited to simple little tunes that looped over and over, and even those songs had their in-game limitations. Go forward to the release of the N64 and the PlayStation, and this thing, I guess, and we were given songs that you could swear were recorded professionally. I mean, have you heard the opening theme for this game? That piano sounds crisp and clean. But come on, what good is your sound technology if the music isn't any good? Thankfully, this game didn't have to answer that question. In fact, if you had asked the great Koji Kondo that, he'd probably beat the shit out of you to the sweet tune of Zelda's Lullaby and leave you on the ground crying. Not from the pain, but to the sweet sounds of the song. Jesus, it's dark yet amusing imagery. I'm weird. Anyway, I say this because Ocarina of Time had to be one of the first times that a game's soundtrack was actually treated like any decent score, at least in a Nintendo game. And yes, before you raise your pitchforks, I am well aware of Super Metroid, Final Fantasy III, Chrono Trigger, and such others. Kondo-san was well aware that a game as ambitious and potentially immersive as Ocarina had to have the music to match. Thus, we were given one of the most atmospheric video game soundtracks at the time, and arguably even to this day. Dungeons weren't just limited to a couple of catchy tunes, but now had their own songs, which, along with most of the songs in this game, were all much more complex than anything Zelda had to offer before. Yeah, sure, we still heard the catchy little tunes when we entered houses, stores, and other smaller areas and minigames, but when it came to the main areas of the game, they made sure to put you in the right mood. Kokiri Forest starts off with an intro that builds up towards the main song, as it signifies the beginning of your adventure, and then it goes off into the happy, carefree song we all know and love, making it a perfect theme for the tutorial before you venture off into Hyrule. Zora's Domain made its water theme even clearer with its ambient tones, relaxing guitar strings, and marimba-style drums. Goron City's theme reflects its respective people with its booming drums, loud brass, and the most Goron-like thing in the song, the Goron's voices, or at least that weird sound effect that is their voice. What is that? However, among these great tracks there's one that stands above them all. The glorious theme of Hyrule Field. This song is just... oh, it's so freaking amazing when you look at everything it contains. It wasn't just the music that officially kicked off your mission to save Hyrule. It wasn't simply that epic tune that followed you as you traversed through the land, making your way up the steep incline of Death Mountain and across the strong currents of Zora's River. This theme, it was your adventure. It could have been a simple, catchy song, but it was much more complex. The music changed according to the situation you were in. If you were simply going across the landscape, the music would remain catchy and upbeat. But as you came across the various enemies of Hyrule, the theme would change to one of intense urgency, one that basically told you that this was a fight for your life. And personally, when it came to the frickin' P-hats, it was. God, those things were creepy. And let's not forget the best part about this theme. Those moments where you just stop. Stop and just admire the landscape that lies before you. In those moments, the music calms down while the soothing notes of an ocarina play. The tempo still goes at the same pace, but it just feels like everything stopped for a moment. Like all the turmoil in the world doesn't matter because you are just at peace for this one instant. God, the changes, they just feel so natural, and it's largely a part of why I love this game so much. Its attention to music, and there's a ton of it. From Hyrule Field's ever-changing music, the Lost Woods using its theme to help you navigate through its maze, to one of the core elements of the game, the ocarina songs. Not only are they a major way of solving puzzles and navigating your way through the world, but just about every ocarina song having to do with the dungeon has a name based on a type of song. Prelude of Light, Minuet of Forest, Bolero of Fire, Serenade of Water, Nocturne of Shadow, and Requiem of Spirit. Yeah, every one of them. And in my opinion, they do justice to all of their respective music types. So with all that said, this game's soundtrack must be perfect to say the least, right? No? Hold up! Hear me out. Now, while it's true that this game's soundtrack sticks in the mind of many gamers and likely leaves many of them with a stupid, happy smile on their face, me included, there's just one category of music that almost always leaves me with a deep feeling of meh whenever I play through this game, and that would be the dungeon music. No matter how many times I find myself listening to the standalone soundtrack for this game, I also find myself skipping these particular songs as well. Why? Because they're simply not that interesting by themselves. Yeah, sure, the Forest Temple's theme is delightfully ambient and creepy at the same time, like, really creepy. The Spirit Temple had the whole ancient Egyptian vibe going for it, which worked quite well. The Ice Cavern has a certain atmospheric tune that was distinct enough, and the Water Temple has this awesome mystical feeling to it, though it's not really the music you are focused on. Water Temple pause boots, Water Temple pause boots, Water Temple pause boots. Sorry, had some bad flashbacks there. But yeah, aside from those few, it didn't really feel like there was much to the dungeons in the way of music. The themes all seemed too samey, focusing a bit too much on having an ambient, creepy, menacing feeling to them, and personally, they just felt dull. I'm not saying I'd prefer completely upbeat tunes or that I'd even change the songs if I could. They're all perfectly fine when all's said and done, and they bring back great nostalgic memories every time. But in comparison to the rest of the game's soundtrack, they just aren't as good in my opinion. Still, at the end of the day, this remains one of my favorite game soundtracks of all time, to my absolute favorite game of all time, and for very good reasons. Perhaps Ocarina hasn't aged the best, and perhaps even the soundtrack may even sound dated by today's standards, but regardless, they will always be timeless in my eyes. Well, that's all for our look at the N64 era. Join us next time for... oh, yeah. Don't know how I could have missed that. End of part 1, people.